Hi guys, welcome at another video of mine. Today I will show you a game in which I trashed an international master with black in less than 50 moves. I played this game a few days ago and it was a bullet game, so it's not necessarily a high level game, but it will show you that if you have a very aggressive repertoire with black, you might pose some problems to white from the very early moves onwards. I will also show you a second game, which was a blitz game that I played about 15 years ago against a very strong grandmaster rated 2600 elo points. I will also talk to you about this opening today, the opening that was featured in both games, and I will also, in later videos, I will have a theoretical look at this opening with the idea to give you a repertoire that you might use in blitz. The repertoire can be employed against e4, and the move that I want to advocate is knight c6. The Nimzowitsch defense. So in this position, white has two main options. First of all, he can take the center with d4. The second option is that he will play knight f3. Let's have a look at d4. None of the games that I will show you today begins with the second move d4. But in later videos, I will come back to this opening variation, to this line. So black can play e5, which may return to the Scotch opening after knight f3, but I always prefer d5. And in this position white has three possibilities. The first one is the advanced variation, which we will meet with bishop f5. Secondly, there's an exchange variation, like this. And thirdly, there is the main move, knight c3. Knight c3 we will meet with a kind of a surprising antidote, because mostly black will capture at e4, but this is not so comfortable after d5. Also, black can play e6, but this leads to some kind of degenerated French defense with a knight that is slightly misplaced at c6. For blitz, I prefer the move e5, which is certainly a very aggressive move, and which will likely surprise your opponent. There are a few lines that might arise from this position. Let me show you the two sharpest ones. One of them is bishop b5. Then we will take allowing a pin, but we will create some mess on the queen side. And in the end, we reach a position that is about equal, if not better, for black already. And white really has to be careful not to have an early accident and crash at once. Secondly, instead of bishop b5, there is the critical move d takes e5, and this we will meet with d4. Again, white has some options, but knight d5 is the principal one. And in these videos, I will have a look at two lines. First, there is bishop e6. Which might continue with knight f4, queen e7. The queen might give a check at b4. Castling is prepared, so black has some ideas that are very dangerous to meet in blitz. Secondly, there is f5, which is an even sharper possibility. For example, a very silly move. If black takes like this, you will of course capture the knight. So it's more likely that white will capture en passant. And in this position, okay, it's promising for white, objectively speaking, but in practice you can create some problems. One of the lines that I like quite a lot is bishop c4, bishop e6, and if now bishop g5, black has knight d5 to create some total mess on the board. Okay, we will not look at one of these lines today. We will focus on the second main move that white has, which is knight f3. Objectively speaking, black must play e5 to go to the open games. But in Nimzowitsch repertoires, you will often find a move like d5 or a move like d6, which with some kind of Scandinavian or some kind of birk. But with the knight at c6, I don't like it very much. There is a possibility to play knight f6, the so-called El Columpio, which is also quite messy and not that bad. For example, e5, and now we will have a very strangely placed knight. White is better, of course, but you can create a mess from this one. I would prefer for this repertoire, I would prefer my normal main move, which is f5. Now f5 is of course a very sharp move, and white has some possibilities to deal with it. I will have a look at e takes f5, which is the principal line, the strongest line, but there is also the move e5. And I will begin with this move. It must be noted, by the way, that many people, they play knight c3, and then already you're better with black, because you will easily take the center. Next you will play e5, and okay, objectively speaking, it's not that bad for white, but in a practical game, if white allows such a thing, most probably is not that strong, and he will mess up rather quickly. Okay, so e5 is one of the moves, and it was played by, against me by Nimzowitsch. It's a typical move for a grandmaster. He doesn't know this line and he wants to play it safe. But I played d6, challenging this this pawn. Now there are some possibilities that white has, but bishop b5, which he played, is the most principal one. Black will capture at e5, the knight will take, and now queen d5. And this kind of troubled my opponent, because he wanted to avoid such a mess, and now he's right into it. He can exchange, and he can give a check at h5. It's all possible, but black is not so bad. Yet he preferred to keep it relatively simple. He exchanged at c6, and now the knight returns. But this allows black to take the center, which again is not such a big problem for white, but white already began by playing a few passive moves, and he will continue doing so. So d3 was played to stop e4. Bishop d6, the bishop takes an active place, castling. The knight develops, knight c3, the queen goes a little back, and rook e1 is a logical move. It's pinning the knight, the queen and the king. Black castles, and now h3. And this really gives black the better position. But again, it's not so strange. White began by returning his knight to f3, so it's logical that he continues in the same style. Black played e4, taking some space. Knight goes away, a little mating threat. The knight defends, and now bishop a6. Black's pieces now are very well placed. He has a strong center, or at least he has a very much advanced pawn. He has some open lines, so the position is not easy for white. Knight e2 is not bound to be a problem for black. The rook centralizes. Black keeps an eye on the center. In the end, white fixes the structure. And now white played d4, which is not a good move. The queen goes back, and you have a very dangerous majority on the king side. In the end, I managed to win. He tried to stop this majority by playing f4, which creates some more weaknesses around the king. Queen to h4, and now he made a mistake. He defended this pawn by queen d2, and I took it because if the queen will take, I will capture the rook. So this was a first line that shows you how rapidly it can go down for white if he's a little bit afraid, if he is not going for the crucial line. Now let's have a look at the other game, the game that I played a week ago against an international master. It was a bullet game, so the level was not particularly high, but that's not necessary neither. I played f5, and my opponent, he captured at f5, which is by far the critical move. Black played d5, and now white has two main possibilities. The strongest one, and really the critical test of this system, is bishop b5. But another line that is quite popular and that seems attractive for white at first sight is knight h4. At h4, the knight is defending this pawn, and especially it's opening up the diagonal for the queen. Well, I looked at this line in preparation of this video, and I found some very interesting innovations for black that I didn't see in any theory book yet. But in this game I wasn't aware of it, and I continued with the line as I knew it, and I will just show it to you. And in the next video I will look a little bit deeper, and I will look at the alternatives that black has with which he can create a mess. So the move that I played was the move e5. This move claims the center. It also attacks the knight with the queen. So it's quite logical that white will continue with queen h5, giving a check. And this seems a bad situation for black. In a later video, you will discover that king d7 is not that bad. But I played g6, which is known as the main move, and follow the forced sequence that your opponent will maybe find in a blitz, but it will cost him some time to get to this position. So the queen arrives again, and queen h4. Queen h7 is the normal move, and now there follows a move that you must know as black, which is the move knight d4. And this is, let's say, the beginning of the theory. And of course, we are 9 moves far, and if your opponent is still with you, he will have less time. That's for sure. In this position, white has several possibilities, and there is one that leaves black in a very bad shape. Though in a blitz game, in a bullet game, it can still end in every result, of course. There's a second move for white that promises him some advantage, and I will discuss both in a later video. Today I will show you what my opponent did, and you will see how quickly he crashes with it. He played c3, and with this move he wants to chase my knight, but of course I don't have the intention to go back with the knight, but I want to develop with bishop f5, which is a logical move, and which I would also play after other moves that white has at his disposal. The queen has no squares except capturing at c7, and now when you pause the video you will soon find the mate that black has. Black plays queen e4, giving a check. This is what white neglected with his move c3. He neglected to cover e4, and this is something that he absolutely must do. The king crawls into the corner, and now there follows a check, and on the following move there follows a mate. And my opponent was mated at move 13 with this tricky opening line. In the following video I will show you a little bit more about this line. I will delve a little bit into the theory of the Colorado Gambit, which it's called, and mainly about the move knight h4. I hope you liked it, and see you later.